Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Reclaimed Motherhood podcast. Britt and I are so excited to be back, and we're so excited to talk to you guys this week about raising girls in the current world that we live in.
Yeah, yep. Raising daughters in this culture that we live in, this new way of doing life. It's different than the way that we did life, isn't it, Liv? Yeah, it's so much different. Yeah, we wanted to start this off with maybe having conversation and sharing a little bit about how we were raised and what we were raised to believe about our bodies and relationship and how to do relationship, or how we weren't really guided in that way, all possibly. So um, all of how we were raised directly affects how we mother our own children. And I know that to be true for me. And it's like there's so many things where it's like, okay, well, some of these things I'm going to take these and I'm going to use them because they were positive things. And then of course there were some things I'm like, that was not exact. I would not raise my girls in that way. And so of course I'm doing things differently. And so yeah, what was that like for you growing up, Liv? Like, what was your experience around, like, what was your experience with your mother or even your grandmother? Because I know you're really close with your grandmother, and how you were raised, and as far as like what you perceived about your own, or you believed even about your own body and about how to do relationship and your um, like your worth.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing though, is I remember there was like this book that I got about like learning about my body as I moved into becoming a teenager, right? So like as we get our cycles, and that's like only the only conversation that was really had about my body changing, right?
Yeah.
And then there was also, I think we may have talked about it on the podcast because we were talking about women's health. There was no discussion about hormones and your period and what's normal and what's not normal. And I just got put on birth control when I was super young.
Mm-hmm.
And then always like the assumption with that is people are like, oh, they're going to go have sex, blah, blah, blah. Like that was just what the conversation was. And there was never a conversation about my body. There was never a conversation about intentionally dating. There was never a conversation about how you should or shouldn't be treated in a relationship, you know? And so I genuinely wonder if older generations ever, even in my family at least, ever really had a conversation like that, you know, like this is what a healthy relationship looks like. This is what an unhealthy relationship looks like. This is when you should know that it's not the right fit for you. Or if you feel this way, if you feel this uncomfortable and unsafe in your body, you probably shouldn't be in that relationship. Like that was not discussed at all. Um, and my parents were divorced when I was younger, so like the talk that I got from my dad was just like, don't have sex. Like that was pretty
Mm-hmm.
much it. But there was no like really sitting down and having an intentional conversation about what dating even means. Like, what is dating? What's the point of dating?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to know about this person? What's the type of person that you want to be with? And it was just like, I remember growing up and seeing so many people, myself included, like have a boyfriend for 2 months, break up with that boyfriend, have another
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend the next week, break up with that boyfriend 3 months later. Like it wasn't, I look back and I'm like, what was the point of that? Like there was no real point in that. And so then when I had my daughter, I just started thinking about what really matters. I mean, we're talking about our legacy, right? We're talking about the things that we want to change within our family, change within ourselves, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want my daughter to have the same experience that I did growing up. I don't want her dating however many guys, um, and like being sexually active with guys who she's not going to actually end up with. Uh,
Right.
and in our culture, in our society, if you think about what dating looks like nowadays, especially when it comes to online dating, granted, that is how I met my husband. But I never thought that that was going to happen. But I went into it very intentionally. So that's the difference. But
Mhm.
it's so, it's like based on looks, it's based on instant gratification, it's based on how many choices do I have? All these people, you know? It's not really like, okay, what kind of person do I want to be with? It's so much focused on like the aesthetics and what it looks like to everybody else. Um, and that's not what it's about at the end of the day. Like when you are looking for someone to marry, you really have to take a step back and look at the big picture and be like, okay, am I ready for this? How do I need to grow? How do I need to change? What is something that makes me uncomfortable that I can lean into even more? Because we each one of us comes with our own past experiences, and
Mm-hmm.
you and I can both speak to that, being
Mm-hmm.
women who and mothers who are divorced and remarried. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I had to do some of my own work before I was ready to even attempt to date after my divorce. And it was a long time. It was 3.5 years. So I think that says a lot because we don't want our daughters to do the same thing, right? We don't want them to end up in relationships and marriages that are either unhealthy, unsafe, and not good for them or their children. So when I think about what I want our daughters to know, there's so much. Like I feel like I don't even know where to start.
No, it's true. There's so much.
There's so much,
There's
and
so
I'm
much.
sure. I mean, I only have one daughter, but you have three daughters, so you have to address each one of them individually and know like what they need based off of that, right?
Yes. And while when you're saying that, I'm like my two adult daughters, the older they're 5 years apart. So they each got a different version of me. And I think I've referenced that a handful of times in this podcast. It's like that's impossible to give them the same mom and the same
Right,
mothering experience. And
right.
so Dylan, my oldest, got a definitely younger, immature, like less mature version of me as a mother. And so my guiding her looked totally different than my guiding Edie, you know?
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, and I can see that in both of their experiences with dating too. And I
Mhm.
can see where Dylan, um, Dylan did life more like the younger version of me, and Edie did things differently. And
Mhm.
a lot of that has to do with the mothering that they each received, you know, and what the messages that they were given, even, you know, unintentionally, the
Yeah.
messages that they were given about who they were. And that's really important. Like making sure your child knows who they are, like their identity, you know. And so I know they got different messages. Um, they both knew that they were loved. They both know that they're loved. Yeah. And I'm thinking, okay, so I like really want to look it up and see because I'm like, I don't want to misquote it. But when you were like, oh, this book. And so when I was growing up, there was a book. That's what I learned from also. And
Yeah.
I want to say it was called something about Margaret. Hello, Margaret. Or like Judy Bloom or something. Maybe I'm making these names up. Does that sound familiar to you?
They both sound familiar to me, but the one that I'm thinking of is something completely different. I think it literally was something like the Body Book or something.
Oh,
Like
really?
I was
It's
thinking of
Me,
like,
Margaret. Okay, I found it.
yeah, but
It's
there was
Me,
also
Margaret, Judy Bloom.
it is that one. Okay. So I know that one, but then there was another one that was like, do you remember like the teenage, what was it? The chicken soup for like the teenage soul or something like
Mm,
that.
yeah,
It was,
I know what you're talking about, but I didn't read them.
yeah, something along those lines. And so in that book, it basically, I vividly remember it was kind of like cartoony, like almost like a comic strip.
Uh-huh.
This is what it's like to have your period and like showing how your body changes and how you grow armpit hair and like
Yeah.
tampons and all of that. And so, yeah, there was never a big conversation about that. And that's actually something that I've tried to be super mindful about with my daughter because I want her to understand her body because
Yeah.
I did not fully understand my body until after I had her. So that means I was like 29 years old, first learning about how my body actually functioned. And then
Hmm.
even then, like getting my cycle back after nursing her for so many years. That was when I was learning about my body again. So then I was like 31. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's just crazy to me to be like, oh, I learned about my body when I was 31 years old and I was already a mom. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
And
It's just this
so,
continuing thing. We're just like always learning more about ourselves, but it's like it's a little bit comical, and I'm sure by design that the schooling system and what we're taught in sex ed, like we literally learn nothing helpful, and it's gotten worse and worse. Like I think Edie came out and
it's,
she's like, "Yeah, there's 7 genders. Did you guys know that?" And we're like, "Oh my god!" Like that's
yes,
what you're learning. You're not learning how your body works or your anatomy. It's like it's
no,
totally different.
it's actually incredibly inappropriate and confusing to children what they're teaching in schools now. It actually, there are certain things that like send me into a blind rage, and that's one of them.
Yeah, I thought
Because
it was
I
bad
think,
when we learned how to put condoms on bananas.
yeah,
And it's only gotten worse. Like none of that is actually helpful
right. That's
or
what I mean.
educational.
When I think about people teaching young children that there are multiple, like endless amounts of genders, I'm like, it's confusing enough to them to realize that there's male and female. Like
Hmm.
it's confusing enough for them at that point, especially
They
the more
have zero reason to have any more information than that. They have
wildly,
zero-
wildly inappropriate. Like
Yeah, I
it's
agree with
just not,
you.
it's not appropriate. But honestly, that's why like I've raised my daughter the way I have, and it's part of why I wanted to have a home birth, and it's part of why I want to have more home births because I want her to see what a woman's body is capable of. I want her to know what a period is. I want her to know the different phases of our cycle. Um, and like she's seen me like taking my temperature in the morning prior to having Leo and just tracking everything. So I'm more aware of it. But then once I did that initially starting out when I was learning my body, then I knew exactly when my period was coming. I knew when it was going to happen, when I was ovulating, all the things because when you actually learn your body and you just pay attention, you
Hmm.
you're listening to your body, so you figure out those things on your own.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so like there's a lot of people who I know at least who I've had conversations with other moms and they're like, well, when do you feel like it's appropriate for your daughter to see this or your son to see this or X, Y, and Z when it comes to like periods and having babies and all of that? And honestly, I think that the more we normalize having open conversations about our bodies and their functions and what they're capable of and their ability to become stronger and heal and give birth and heal, I think it's really important that our kids see that, you
Yeah, I
know?
agree with you.
I
Hmm.
mean, obviously, it's going to be different in each family what parents feel are appropriate versus not appropriate. But like for me, I didn't even question having a home birth and having Lula be there. If she
Hmm.
didn't want to be there, that would have been a different story.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
she did want to. And we've had so many conversations after the fact about it that
Hmm.
she's asked me questions or she said just her thoughts on things. And I think that's really cool. And
Yeah.
so I feel like it's so layered. Like there's so many things I want them to know.
Yeah. Yeah. I asked my older girls before I got on here. I was like, okay, hopping on to have a conversation with Olivia, and this is what we're talking about. And I'm curious what you girls um would recommend to moms raising girls now. What is your and so I really like had them on the spot, like it was on the fly, but their answers were Dylan immediately said that she's thankful she had a naked mom growing up.
Yeah.
And by naked mom, she's just saying like she like said, well, I never felt any shame around my body. I feel confident in my body because I saw you you being naked
Hmm.
growing up. And so it was just normal to me. And I thought about that. And that's not something I did intentionally that I can think of. But I do remember my mother being very private, and I don't think I ever saw my mom naked.
Yeah.
And I didn't even see her breastfeeding. And she breastfed. I was the oldest of four, but she was very private. And so it's just funny to hear her say that. And then Edie echoed that. And she's like, yeah, she's like, I'm so grateful I had a naked mom. And I don't know why they're saying it like that. Maybe It
No,
makes
but
it sound like I just strut around naked, but I don't.
you're a
Um,
nudist on the
I'm
side.
just a nudist. But she said, yeah, I'm so grateful I had a naked mom. And she's like, um, I've had new friends. Whenever a new friend would like come over and we're getting ready to do something, they would just be like shocked that I would just get naked and be perfectly confident and comfortable doing that.
Mhm.
And she's like, it's been kind of cool to like watch that be okay with them then. Like, because I'm able to just get naked in front of them, they're like, oh, I guess that's okay to just be naked. And there's just such a, yeah, so they were just sharing. I think that's a funny thing that that's what they immediately came up with.
No,
But
but that is so valid. That's so
yeah.
valid because to your point, I feel like older generations, it was like modesty was such a big thing within the
Hmm.
home and within their children, within their
Hmm.
family. And so I've done the same thing because I don't ever want my daughter to be ashamed of her body and or to be like just questioning things or not or like feeling unsure about asking me questions.
Hmm.
So like I've always been a naked mom too because I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is my body, this is what it looks like. I breastfed you, you've seen my body grow a whole other baby and then bring a baby
Yeah.
into the world and then this is what it looks like now.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something really, really important for girls in that regard to be like, oh wow, my mom is not ashamed of her body. She's not critical of herself. She's not talking about herself negatively. I think that's a huge
That's
piece.
so important, Liv. And I remember, I know that when I was younger, I had an eating disorder. And so I remember feeling like I never want my girls to have an eating disorder. I want them to feel beautiful in their skin no matter what. And so we put a heavy, like, we talk about health in this house, obviously, like nonstop. It's like, being strong, lifting
Mhm.
weights, eating protein, making sure you're getting
Mhm.
your protein, hydrating well. Like we don't spend a lot of time talking about physical appearance. I
Right.
know Edie went through a time trying to make her booty as big as she could, but like outside of that, um,
We have
so
goals. It's okay to work towards
those
them.
goals are good goals. Yeah, she does have a nice booty. So yeah, I mean, it was really important to me that they didn't have that. And I will share, it's funny to me that just to warn young moms that you are going to hear things from your girls that make you want to just never let them see you naked again. Because there there are comments. Like I remember one of the girls, gosh, it was so Dylan is the one that was like, Mom, are my boobs gonna look like that someday? And it was after I'd been done breastfeeding Edie for a while. And so she saw them go through a lot of changes. And then I think it was the deflated version. And she's like, and the way she said it, I was like, girl,
Yeah, my daughter told me that my boobs looked like pancakes
yes,
after
yes,
breastfeeding her for 4 years, and I was like,
you're
"Yeah,
welcome,
you're
sister.
welcome, honey. You're welcome."
Yeah, so you just have to be ready to hear things like that. And then also be ready to have an appropriate response because I
Yeah,
think that if you respond with, like I was sharing, like hurt feelings
yeah,
or like embarrassment or like you have to be able to think quick on your feet and have a response that doesn't make them go like that think that it's abnormal or weird or gross or even like Edie, she was like, "Oh, mom, your buns are like laying on your legs now."
yeah,
I guess my buns got flat for a period of time. And so I remember hearing that and just being like, but it's an opportunity for you um, to speak into how amazing our bodies are
yeah,
and to talk about our own bodies in a way that we're not ashamed of them and that we normalize like bodies looking all different ways and how they change so much as a woman and um, so I'm like, I want to just throw it out there because it's not always going to be a really pleasant, beautiful experience to just be naked around your kids because they're super honest and they have questions. And that was another thing. In fact, you know what? Edie texted me something after I asked them. She was still thinking about it. And she said, yeah, I think this is why I'm so confident and comfortable with my body. I also appreciate how you never made me feel like the questions I asked were dumb or pointless. You also taught me that my words have power. I definitely want to do those things when I'm a mom. Telling my daughter she's made beautifully exactly how God intended. So that's what Edie shared. She also shared that she wants girls to know that beauty standards aren't necessarily real in what you're seeing in today's society, whether it's Photoshop or plastic surgery. I think it's much more attractive to be authentic and post
Yeah,
yourself as you are. So that was Edie's input to today's conversation. So I wanted to make sure I read that.
beautifully put, Edie.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that is so true. And I do think, I mean, that's another part of the conversation that I honestly didn't even think about until you just said that. But um we didn't have like social media like
Mm-mm.
our generation does now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's actually a big conversation in our household, is that like I'm not having my kids on social media
It's a
when
good
they're,
call.
yeah, when they're young and their brains are still developing. And part of it is because, like what Edie just said, like AI, filters, all these editing things that make people look different than they actually do. Uh,
Yeah.
and also just like cosmetic surgery and all of these things that people choose. And I mean, if you want to do that to your body, that is your choice. But
Mm-hmm.
I am constantly telling my daughter, like, God made you this way. You are beautiful just as you are. And I've even had to have conversations surrounding that too, in terms of like, she's seen me put makeup on.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, well, why do you wear makeup?
Mm-hmm.
Because you are wondering what other people are going to think of you, or because you want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've even changed it in certain things in that regard, because I'm like, we are wonderfully made by God.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
we are, every single one of us is beautiful. And I tell her that all the time, because I'm like, she has asked about people being taller or shorter, and then compared that to how old they are, right? So, like, she's taller than some of her friends, but some of her friends are older than her. And so I've had conversations with her about, like, just because you're taller, like, that's not something that you should feel ashamed of or feel self conscious about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes I do have to remind her of that, because she is taller, but like that's how she was made, and
Yeah.
her legs have always grown first, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
like that's just how her body has grown. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think social media, there's so much comparison, there's so much bullying on social media too, that's just
Yeah.
completely unnecessary. And I think it impacts boys and girls. Like, this is not just a conversation about how it impacts girls. Like,
Yeah.
bullying in boys is a big problem too.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think the more you said, like, helping them know who they are and identifying who they are, their identity, will
Mm-hmm.
help them feel more confident in the world. So
Yeah.
speaking life into them, and not being critical, that's actually one thing that I really, really had to unlearn, because I'm very internally critical of myself.
Yes.
And that did come from my mother and my grandmother. And like, I love them, obviously, but that's how they were raised. So they didn't even really think, like, maybe we should kind of switch it up a little bit. But they were very critical of me when I was younger. And I
Mm-hmm.
would always try so hard to be like the good girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I got perfect grades and never did anything wrong. But
Yeah.
then as I got older, like, I had to break out of that and be like, no, I can actually be myself and not be afraid
Mm-hmm.
to be myself. It's not saying like go buck wild and be chaotic and cause a ruckus everywhere, but just like not being afraid to actually be myself.
Yeah,
Uh,
you have to learn who you are when you are raised and I was raised like that too. And
yeah,
it's like there's like a period of time of like unlearning that good girl behavior like you're saying, it's not in a way where you're like rebellious and wild. It's like you're unlearning that good girl behavior because you're like, oh, it's okay to have like these feelings and to actually be interested in this instead of this,
right.
or whatever that looks like, just going against those loyalties that we have with our family.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I totally see where I was overcritical of Dylan and taught her to be that good girl, and definitely less so with Edith. And um, yeah, it's obvious when you spend time with them, you can
Yeah.
feel that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's something that I'm really trying to to be more mindful of, because I feel like because I am critical of myself,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'm just like naturally critical and I don't mean to be, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
like so deeply ingrained in me that I'm like, okay, Olivia, you have to do some internal work so that way it's not being projected onto everybody else around you.
Yeah.
But I feel like, especially with girls growing up, but with boys too. But with girls growing up, I want my daughter to feel comfortable in her own skin and feel comfortable being silly and doing or saying the things that she likes to do and her interests. Like, I don't want her to feel like she has to shut those things down because they're not normal, or like society
Yeah.
tells you to do something else.
Yeah. And something I learned when I was a new mom that's coming to mind right now that is, I think, really helpful. And speaking of that good girl behavior, is um, I remember being in the car and something was on my mind, something was bothering me. I was not in a great mood. I can't remember what it was, but I remember being like, I'm fine. She's like, Mom, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. Mom, seriously, are you okay? Yes, Dylan, I'm fine. Right. And this is really harmful. And I didn't know that being a young mom. And she, that I just remember that conversation. It's not something that was like a one time thing. It's something I probably did often with her. And I remember that car ride and the way she like persistently asked me, and then the way she was just quiet after I like shut her down. And I was like, ooh, that didn't feel right. And I remember it was only like a week later, and I was asking her, she seemed a little off to me. And I was like, honey, are you okay? You seem a little off. Is something bothering you? I'm fine. I'm fine. And so I remember that time so clearly because I remember thinking, like, Brittany, like talking to myself, Brittany, you have to take the mask off. You have to be able to show her. And some things aren't appropriate to share with your children, obviously. You can't be like super um detailed on like what it is that's bothering you. Like, obviously be discerning when you're sharing with your children, but like you have to be able to say, like, you're right, honey, you're noticing that I'm not okay right now. My heart is hurting, or I'm distracted with this thought, or this whatever, I'm distracted, and or my feelings are hurt, and I'm just trying to navigate something or work through something. And thank you for picking up on that. Thank you for caring about me. There's different ways you can handle that, but it's like, so, I don't know, I see it. It's common in us as mothers to, I think it's a way to like protect our kids from like, we don't want them to feel our feelings. But here's the thing, is they're feeling our feelings anyways. It's like, you just have to show up and be honest. You have to show up in integrity, even when you're raising your children, and acknowledge that what they're sensing from you emotionally is accurate, because they're learning how to read you, and that teaches them how to read other people, and even what they are allowed to share as far as their emotions go. And so I don't that just came to my mind when you were talking about that, because I'm like, yeah, take the mask off, mamas. Like, that was really hard for me to unlearn and to take that mask off and be like, you're right, you're reading me well, you're doing a good job reading me. I'm not feeling happy right now, I'm not feeling like joyful right now. I'm dealing with something, and I'll be okay. Like, you can reassure them that you're going to be okay.
Yeah, but I do also think that that's a generational thing, right? Like, they were like,
Mhm.
no, you keep your feelings to yourself, you hold yourself together. And obviously, like, we're capable of, like you said, discerning what's an appropriate conversation to have,
Mhm.
knowing when to like if we really need to process something, sometimes it's not going to be in front of our kids, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes. Mhm.
But just acknowledging, like you said, yeah, I'm feeling really sad, or I'm feeling distracted, or whatever. Just saying that. You don't have to go into the details.
Yeah.
Just saying that makes a huge difference, because I grew up in two different households where everybody pretended everything was fine all the time,
Yeah.
even though I knew it wasn't. So I
Mhm.
didn't know all the details of what someone was feeling, but I knew that something was wrong in two
Mhm.
different houses. And so that's the thing, is that, like, I don't want my kids being like, they can feel that something's off. And I'm just like, no, it's fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, we grew up like that. And so it is a big thing that we have to unlearn, is how to say that in a way that it's like, yeah, you're right. You are noticing this within me. And this is what I'm doing to work through it, or we'll talk about it when you're older, or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, because it is, like you said, they're learning facial expressions, they're learning
Oh,
how to read.
yeah.
Those are essential life skills.
And here's the thing, they're even reading you when you are looking at yourself in the mirror. When you put an outfit on to get ready to go somewhere and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like pulling on your stomach or you're like pushing up your boobs or you're like, self-conscious, they're watching you put clothes on. And I've seen like in fitting rooms, it's just really important that as mothers, and here's the thing too, like you are beautiful, mama, right? Like you shouldn't be saying negative things to yourself when you're looking at yourself. And um, you just have to know that everything you're doing, you are an example to her. And our mother's words become our words. And that is so true. And I know that to be true for me. When I'm in the middle of something, and I've said this a couple of different times, like, oh, that's my mom and that's my mom up here. I'm listening to my mom. She's not even here right now. Um, and so just what you witness, your mother, the way she looks at herself in the mirror and the way she talks about her body, those things are really important. And you pick up those things and then they become important to you. And it's not even intentional. It's just something that we intuitively pick up on, and it becomes just the way that we do life. And it's like it can be a really beautiful thing. Like you can pass on like a comfortableness in your own skin and a confidence in your own skin, and you can pass that on to your girls, or you can pass on the opposite. And it really is just like an intentional choice that you have to make as a mother. And you'll notice when you start changing the way that you look at yourself in the mirror and you talk to yourself or about yourself, it's going to change the way you feel about yourself also, and the way you treat yourself and take care of yourself.
Yeah. And that comes with actually believing, though, right? Like
Mhm.
actually feeling that way about your body and yourself. I think
Mhm.
that's a big life lesson, right? When you were
Mhm.
just saying, like, I'm thinking like my mom would. Like, I wholeheartedly have done that. Um,
Mhm.
I actually remember something from, I don't know if I read it or I watched a video or something, but it was this woman, and she was probably in her 60s or something, and she was sitting there and she was getting ready for the day, and she was talking about the importance of how we speak about ourselves around our children, or how we speak to our children about themselves.
Mhm.
And she said that she remembered, she was putting on blush, and she said she remembered her mom making a comment that she was putting too much blush on and she looked like a clown.
Mhm.
Much older, and she remembered that because the things that we say about our children and about ourselves, like you said, are what they start to believe about themselves.
Yeah, it's our narrative that we carry.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I am trying so hard to be mindful about my words, because I don't want to be critical to
Mhm.
my daughter. And admittedly, like I absolutely unintentionally have been, because that's how I am with myself. And then I've gone back and I've been like, you know what? I should not have said it in that way. I could say
Mhm.
it differently. I could use different words, whatever it may be, to repair that.
Yeah,
But
I've done that too, Liv. I've done that too. I think that's really important that you said that and that you shared that, because we're not going to be perfect all the time, for sure. There's been so many moments where, to be honest, even recently, Edie was helping me take a picture, and I had to submit it for something, and so we just were doing that really quick, and I knew I wasn't in the mood for it. And then I was like, I said something like, I don't like any of these pictures. I said something, I criticized my smile, or like how I don't know how to pose in pictures or something like that. And then afterwards, I was like, Eads, I'm so sorry. I don't even know where that came from. And then I actually did know where that came from. And so I was sharing with her that I was like, I never want you to hear me talking about myself like that ever. And I'm like, and I never would want you to talk about yourself like that. So we had a conversation. She's like, Mom, I mean, she's an adult now, and I've been pretty careful, but like, she's like, Mom, it's okay. Like, I totally get it. And she just was like, Mom, you're just so beautiful. And I never want you to talk about yourself like that. And it's like, oh my gosh, yeah. Like, you wouldn't talk about your daughter that way. You wouldn't talk about your mom that way. You would never. you would never. So we just have to be really mindful about the words that we're saying to ourselves. And also, like she said, words hold power, right? And so that's probably something she's referencing, is even the words that we speak over ourselves are so powerful. And, they could be curses or blessings, and that goes for ourselves and others. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say also, though, that applies to the relationships that we're in, right? Outside of like the mother daughter relationship, like
Yep.
the father's relationship with the daughter matters and how
Mm-hmm.
he speaks about the mom. Like
Yeah.
that impacts your kids. And so I was just thinking about like relationships and dating and like how I wish we had any sort of conversation about that when I was growing up. Um, because I could have avoided being in so many different relationships
Ugh,
had
Live, same.
had we had a conversation like that. But I want them to know, like, hey, if your family is not going to speak to you in this way, say certain things to you, then the person that you're dating should also not be saying those things to you. They should be uplifting to you. So that's where it's like the relationships that we have within our home, like it all starts at home. That's what we're
Mm-hmm.
modeling for our kids. We're
Mm-hmm.
modeling how they should and shouldn't be treated. And
Yeah.
so, like well, you said, we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect, but we can always strive to be better. We can go back and we can repair and we can start new things within our family so that way our legacy is not the same as previous generations of their families.
Yes, and that's something too, like I said, having adult kids, my kids are not shy about coming to me and saying like, you didn't do this for me and I wish you had, or you did this and I wish you hadn't, or just being super direct, and I find it refreshing. And yes, it hurts sometimes, and it's like because I feel shame or guilt or remorse, or there's a lot that comes with your kids coming to you and saying like, hey, you didn't do this perfectly, and I wish you had. And gosh, but the repair that you're talking about that happens, like, it's something that has to happen through their entire upbringing. You have to be willing to hear them come to you with things and then put in the work to repair. And that doesn't stop when they're adults. And it's so great for them to come to you as adults and tell you these things, because you have an opportunity to own what you didn't do well and what you did wrong, and apologize. And I think that's so powerful. And that's something they get to take into raising their own kids. So that repair work is really important. It's super important.
Yeah, I just think that we have opportunities every day, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
even if something has gone the wrong way or you did something and you feel horrible about it, or you feel guilty about it, um, like we can always ask for forgiveness. We can always start to do things differently. And I think that when we're modeling that for our girls, for our children, it's critical to their overall view of how they view themselves, how they view relationships, and how they can have the confidence to come back and, like you said, hear what someone has to say, even if it's the truth, and even if it hurts them or upsets them. Like that's okay.
Mhm.
The uncomfortable, in air quotes, uncomfortable conversations can be the most important ones. Those can be the ones that completely change your relationship for the better. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think that the more we model that with them, the easier it becomes for them. So like even if for example, like we did something or said something to them that really upset them, and then we come back and we say, you know what, I was wrong, I shouldn't have said that, or I should have approached differently, like
Mhm.
that makes them more comfortable being able to have those conversations within their own relationships.
Yeah, it does. And also, I was just thinking about like dating, right? So I was thinking about, well, we were talking about like the sex education that we received, which was baloney. It was disgusting. And then thinking about like what we were given, as far as like, I was raised in this like purity culture, and I've talked about this pretty often, but raised in purity culture where it was like, I'm sure it's like the DARE program where like they're like, just don't do it. And how well that worked for the DARE program. It also didn't work very well for purity culture. And that's how I was raised. There wasn't any explanation. There wasn't like, this is why. And also it's like the fear of God was put in you. And there was all these fears around like, well, you could get pregnant, you could get diseases, you could whatever, right? And so there was fear. There was just like a rule, a straight up rule, like just don't do it. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And it's been proven to not work. And so being really intentional with your children and teaching them, first of all, their value and what their worth and their identity in Christ, and that they are a daughter of the King. I think it starts there. And then it's, setting boundaries around something. When you're setting boundaries around yourself, you're showing somebody the worth of what you're setting boundaries around. You're saying this is something worth protecting. And so that part's really important. But also spending time talking with your kids about the real reasons why it's wise to abstain from having experiencing intimacy with somebody that is not your spouse, right? And why God blessed us with such a beautiful thing, but what that gift is meant for, and what He created it for. And that was never like walked through with me. I didn't have anybody sitting me down and being like, hey, this is the beauty of this. It was like something dirty. It was something like you don't talk about. And so yeah, I've been pretty intentional with my girls have shared like, oh, well, each one of their friends, like we watch them dating this guy after this guy after this guy after this guy. And I've even seen this with some of my friends, even older, still maybe dating, right? And there is, you watch this like, oh, it's so sad. You watch these young girls like longing for their partner that they broke up for and wanting to go back to them. And you're like, girl, that was not a relationship. Also, you like only slept together and you're only together for a couple of weeks. Or so it's been really difficult for my girls to watch their girlfriends make choices like that, and then watch them really struggle, and watch this like fragmentation happen within their girlfriends, like this brokenness and this that you see their self-worth go down. And so explaining to them the value of what they're not protecting, and that they're just giving it away, and what is being created in that is what God intended for a husband and a wife to experience together, which is a soul tie. It is a forever soul tie where you are connected to that one other person, because there's something so powerful about marriage, right? Like God created to become one flesh, right? There's something so powerful about that. And so, of course, the devil wants to destroy that. So, creating all these fragmentations and brokenness within these women that are attaching themselves to every single one. If they do it over and over and over again, the more broken they become and the lower their self-worth is. And so seeing it for what it is, it allows your child, it allows your daughter to put up the boundaries that are needed and to see the worth in herself and in intimacy itself, and then to protect it. And not just because there's a rule saying that don't do it, and not just because they're like afraid of disappointing God, or afraid of contracting diseases, or afraid of getting pregnant. That your daughter is making this decision because she's convicted. She's making this decision because she knows her worth. She knows the value of intimacy. She knows the value that there is in marriage and what God created. And so her intentions when she's going out into the world and dating, like you said before, and and Edie's been very good about this in her dating life. And it's been really fun to watch. She's like, her intentions are to marry. She's dating to marry. She's dating to find her husband. So if she goes on one date and she's like, yeah, I don't think that's my husband, she intentionally spends time in the Word and spends time praying and asking God to show her If this is not the one, send him away, you know? And she's been so intentional in her dating, and she is dating to find her husband. And so, when you are doing that, you do it differently. You're doing it differently than everybody else, right? And it's also just watching her put so much value in, putting boundaries around her value and what she sees, the confidence that she has in who she is, her identity. So
Yeah. I mean, everything that you said, it is so, so important to really open up and have these conversations with our kids, right? Because
mhm.
to be completely honest, if you're dating and you're not dating with intention, then what are you doing? Right.
What are we
So
doing?
people are seeking like this dopamine hit, right? They're seeking like
Mhm.
going out on a date, finding someone, having passionate sex with them. But then what,
Mhm.
right? Like you don't even
Mhm.
know them. You don't know their heart. You don't know their mind. You don't know what's important to them. You don't know their family. You don't even know their last name. And
Yeah.
so,
And attention is not love. And
no,
also, if you think about it, like if you think about the male is giving and you are receiving, you are not just receiving fluids. You are
right.
not just receiving, you are receiving like whatever baggage he has spiritually. You're receiving whatever baggage he has emotionally. Like you are receiving him where he's at, who he is, right? And so there you have to be so careful.
You do. I mean, you really
Mhm.
genuinely do. And that's the thing, though, is that our society is just so much of what's everywhere, right? Whether it's social media or movies or TV shows, it's just like it's it's not reality, right?
No.
And so, I mean, I even think about what you and I don't know if I said it on the podcast or before we came on, but um this year within my marriage is my first year of marriage to my husband, and I experienced some of the greatest loss of my entire life. And
Mhm.
so my husband stood by me when I was like falling apart. And if you are not dating to find someone who's going to be there for you in that moment, do you know what I mean? Like that, you have to know the type of person that you're dating and that
You too.
they're going to be there for you. And the whole point of dating is to find someone to marry.
Mhm.
Yes, my
I agree.
son. But like I just think about that and I'm like, in our society it's just like, okay, well, what do they look like? What kind of car do they drive? What's their
Yeah.
job? How much money do they make? And it's like that's not actually what matters at the end of the day. It's
Mm-mm.
who they are as a person and who you are and what your shared
Yeah.
beliefs are and what matters to you deeply. And so conversations about family and finances and the Lord,
Mhm.
and like you said, even just conversations with your children about saving yourself for marriage, like that matters so much. Like
Mhm.
why there's just this sexualization of everything in our society, and it's so disgusting to me. Honestly, it's frustrating to me, and
Yeah.
it's just younger and younger now than when we were kids,
Well, we
and
have to be
it's
so
completely
careful about what we're consuming, right?
right.
I feel like that's like you said that. We have to be careful about what we're consuming. And I mean, here's the thing is I see moms out there and it sounds really judgmental. I'm really good at being judgmental. I'll admit that. I see moms out I judge myself also.
Same.
But I see moms out there reading smut books and I'm like, girl, that is so unhealthy. Like, and what is the example you're setting for your daughter? And what is that doing to your relationship, right? And you're just like romanticizing, like heavily romanticizing, yeah, like relationship and like not really living in reality. And then there's also the music that we're consuming. Like I'm guilty of that, thinking back to the music I had playing in my car when I had my three older kids in the car with me. I'm like, we were having a good old time singing pretty inappropriate music. And so um thinking about the music that we're consuming as parents, as mothers, and then what we're allowing our children to consume, and then the TV shows that we have running, are you a mom that's got some garbage reality TV show on that's like dating and people cheating on each other and like there's some wild things going on out there on the TV shows now. And then like social media, we're back to social media, right? The social media that we're consuming and what that does to our minds. And that directly affects how we do relationship with our partner and the example that we're showing our daughters. So yeah, I just think that what we consume, we have to put a lot more attention into what we're consuming.
Sorry, guys, brief intermission for a baby who needed some extra love. Um, but I agree with what Britt was saying about what we're consuming and what we're allowing, basically allowing in our home, right? Whether it's the music that we're listening to or the shows that we're watching or the movies that we're watching. We used to do pizza and movie nights in our house, and we've kind of even moved away from movies because these movies that I thought were like movies that I grew up watching, I'm realizing that they're like not even appropriate and they're just trash. Like so many movies are just not good and they're not for kids,
Mm-mm.
even though we grew up watching them, which is just to me. Uh, but what we consume does like really genuinely does matter to kids and to our family overall. And so that's something that I worked on over the years. Like the music that we listen to so much worship music because
Mm-hmm.
my daughter loves it,
Mm-hmm.
but like that's what I want her to be hearing is like a trust in God, trust in the Lord, trust in the journey along the way. The Lord has walked through us during the dark seasons, the hardest seasons. And so I think that's really important that they believe that. They genuinely believe that. They grow up believing that. You think so too? And yeah, so what we consume really does matter. And Britt and I were talking earlier about social media and how it looks to everybody too. Um, but we wanted to kind of segue into our next podcast episode. But the example that we're setting within our own marriages matters so much. So, like, what our kids see, how
Mm-hmm.
they see us treating our husbands, not just how we're treating them. Um, he's so happy.
Yeah.
Um, how they see us treating each other, and like you said, being intentional in our marriages, that matters for them in terms of setting an example for the type of relationship that we pray for them to be in.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's never too late to prioritize your marriage and to make changes within your marriage and how you're doing relationship with your husband. And yeah, I do a lot of work with couples, and it's marriage is just hard, and so it's not always going to be this rainbow and butterflies season. There's so many seasons in marriage, and it's never too late to um, do things differently and to prioritize your marriage and your husband, and thinking about, you're doing that for you and for your husband and for your marriage, but also, like Liv is saying, setting an example to your kids, because what they're seeing you do is likely what they're going to choose in their own partner because it's familiar to them. So yeah, I agree.
That's so important too, though. Like
Mhm.
what our children see, how they see us in relationships, whether it's with our family members, like our parents, our siblings, our friendships.
Mhm.
That's what they're going to base their relationships off of, right? And
Yeah.
so we want to be setting a positive example of how we respond, how we react, how we repair. Um, that is so important, and something that was not modeled within my family. And
No.
it's not that I think my parents did that intentionally. I just think it was never modeled for them, and they never thought, hey, maybe we should do this differently. And so
Yeah.
I think that we have this beautiful opportunity to change that within our homes and to set those examples and to show our girls that, like you said, we can change at any point. If something's not working, we can pivot something within the relationship. We can try something new. It's never too late to like really like go all in and just make everything better. I really like, with the help of the Lord, like I truly wholeheartedly in my soul believe that everything can change.
I
And
do
I
too, Liv.
I want them to know that too. Like I want them to believe in who they are, who God says they are, how he made them, and that any relationship, especially a marriage, like they can wholeheartedly give themselves to, and their husband can give back, and it can change everything.
Yep. I agree.
Yay. Well, I'm excited to keep having this conversation because there's so
Yeah.
many things that I did differently this time around.
Oh, girl, same.
So many things. So I'm excited to have that next conversation,
Me
and we hope
too.
you too. But as always, if you guys have things that you want to hear more about, or if you have questions for Britt and I, we could even do a whole podcast episode that's like a Q&A. That'd be fun too. But
Mhm.
feel free to email us or reach out to us on Instagram. We'd love to connect with more of you. But I think that's all we have to say for this week, and we'll be back next week. Bye, guys.